So welcome to our presentation. So the Fall at Providence College Archive. This is open to all who are researching or investigating the isolating, melancholic experiences of Providence College students this fall semester amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
So I took on the role of prototyping our archive. The form of our archive is Fall at Providence College is a tree bare of leaves except for 15 apples on the branches of the tree. There is also an apple picking bucket, and this archive is supposed to resemble the act of someone apple picking. Each of the 15 apples on the tree encloses the actual item in the archive, and on the outside of each apple has a number. However, for the audience to participate and interact with the archive, it is essential that they read the paper user manual, which holds directions for interacting with the archive. Within the user guide, next to each number that correlates with the numbered apples, there are clues that may inform the audience as to what is inside the numbered apple on the tree without explicitly stating so. So we are going to do a real-life demo on how to interact with this archive using the user manual.
So I am just going to pull the user manual up right now. Just bear with me as I switch between some screens here. So I created the user manual for the group's archive. And as part of the ideation process, Jason brainstormed and put together clues as part of the user manual that guide the participants' guesses. So let's run through an example. So as you can see here, you're first supposed to visit the process overview section of the user manual, which offers directions on how to interact with the archive. Essentially, you first turn to the section interactivity, which is on page 5 here, and that includes the clues for making your guesses. And you're going to read one clue for an item, identify which apple on the archive the above clue correlates to, and then on a piece of paper, you are to number the item of this apple and respond in writing with your guess of the item that is inside. You do repeat all of these steps for all 15 items in the Providence College archive. And then you're going to write your name and phone number to contact on the slip of paper and submit your guesses to the archive's apple picking bag. So you will hear back within 1 month if you're a chosen winner and have made the most correct guesses of the items inside the archive. And then from there, you can retrieve the apples from the archive off of the branches itself to see how your guesses align with the answers, or actually refer to the inventory section of the user manual. So for the purpose of this demonstration, the apple that Kira is holding was apple number 9. So we're going to read the 9th clue, and that says, I am a knit object often worn as the weather gets cold. So Kira, why don't you show us what's actually inside of that apple?
Okay, inside apple number 9 is the PC beanie.
Okay, so participants can actually group their guesses together based on the apples in the branches and the corresponding items on each branch, because the branches represent distinct categories here. And so although the participants will not know the various categories until fully reading the user manual, other items can actually help guide their subsequent guesses. So let's try another demonstration. So for this one, we are going to actually choose apple number 12. So I am often found left in the cup holder of a car after the driver has completed their trip to a popular breakfast chain. So this item is actually a Dunkin' Donuts cup. And participants can check their answers within the user guide. So as you can see in the inventory section, there is an answer key here first. So you can see that apple number 12 is a Dunkin' Donuts cup, and you can also continue to flip through the manual to the inventory sheets, which detail each item in the archive, as well as the category and number associated with the said item. So once a month, the winner is again chosen from this bag, and the guest can be contacted by the phone number on the contact slip. And from there, if they win, they can verbally put in a suggestion to the designers for one additional item to be considered as an addition to the current archive. So let me switch back to the presentation here. Just one moment, sorry. Okay, so now we are going to walk you through the process of how we reach our final archive. So as you can see here, we received another group's list of 15 items to collect, document, and take pictures of. All three of us did take on 5 of these items to become experts on and to better understand their use. We categorized the items using different inventory numbers in the form Group 3 display tactics, as you saw just prior on the inventory sheet, and all the files were kept in a Google Drive called Group 3 Display Tactics Fall at Providence College, and all the image files and categories corresponded correctly to one another. However, because we did each take ownership of 5 items, this resulted in about 13 different categories initially, as you see here. And later on in this presentation, we will show you how we brainstormed to recategorize the inventory in a much more efficient way.
So some other research that went into both the process of emphasizing and the ideation process was realizing that an archive had to physically hold the items and not just serve as a representation of the items. We explored college and university archives, government archives, historical archives, museums, and religious archives to gather ideas of the forms that this can take, along with Mark Dion archives serving as inspiration, such as this one, Tate Thames archive. We also looked at archives from the Smith College that contain documents of the students, and also the Nelson Mandela Foundation archive to get inspiration of how others were engaging with other archives. We also began to focus on the audience of the archive. This archive located within PC galleries will be geared towards and sympathize with Providence College students, although anyone from the community is welcome to interact with the archive as well.
So we originally named our collection Fall at Providence College because after examining the list that we were originally given, Group 3 decided that our team, and then similarly the title of this collection, would be called Fall at Providence College. This is because many of the items correspond to popular fall activities, including Halloween, but the clothing was much more fitting of the cooler weather that New England sees in the fall, in particular Providence College students. So with that said, the clothing items that we chose to represent, such as the hat and the LL Bean, were both from PC. So we chose to narrow the theme of fall so that it was specific to Providence College students. However, after more discussion, we realized we needed to hone in on this theme to create a thesis. In other words, what did we want to say about fall at Providence College? So what? And to solve for this, we mimicked the post-it note technique presented in the IDEO video, although we used a Google document instead, and this was part of our process of defining our thesis. So here that you see on the screen are essentially how we were able to narrow our theme down, and we ultimately landed on melancholy, but here are 3 of our top ideas. So first, there was the symbolism of fall, and essentially this was the idea that in fall, the growing cycle of crops can also be linked to the growth of Providence College students as we continue to change, develop, and mature. There's also the symbolism of personal and environmental changes. So as modern technology, science and medicine, and ultimately human civilization continues to develop, the environment suffers as a result from those changes. But finally, we did land on melancholy, which was this idea that in the fall, it's much colder, there's less daylight, animals are preparing for hibernation, and this isolating feeling is similar to the energy of PC students this semester because of the pandemic.
So, like discussed a few minutes ago, the form of the archive is a tree bare of leaves except for 15 apples on the branches of the tree, which provides a metaphor for the students at Providence College this fall. The fall season can often be viewed as a type of change with the shifting seasons and the changing colors of the fall foliage. With the days shortening, the temperature dropping, and animals preparing for an isolating winter hibernation, the fall season can also be very melancholic. Likewise, this fall, students at Providence College are experiencing feelings of melancholy. While they are recluse in the corners of their rooms, stocking up on items from isolating quarantine, and separated from their friends and family, this fall is a time of unfulfilling change. As the leaves fall off the trees, they bring with them the fallen emotions and hopes of Providence College students, leaving the campus bare and vulnerable to whatever happens next.
We went through a similar process to land on categorizing the items within the archive, and then we did this again to brainstorm the form of our archive, and we did that through a forum post in class. So you can see here the list of what we had compiled for the form of the archive. And in a way, we ultimately did combine several of these ideas to create the form of our archive. As you can see here, we initially thought of a tree with each item as a leaf, an apple picking where each item was a different apple, except this would actually be within a bucket rather than the apples on the tree. And then we did also think of an apple orchard. And although instead we did a single tree with apples instead of leaves that are displayed, but then can be put into a bucket, you can really see how that was kind of a culmination of these different ideas.
So as part of the ideation step, I created 3 sketches based on our brainstorming session of potential archives. First, I created a design with the theme of bobbing for apples. This design shows the barrel as the container where all the archive items will be stored and safely kept. Inside the barrel would be water, just like the real activity, and the audience too would be able to engage with and bob for apples in this archive. Unfortunately, the apples are fake and hollow, which allows the room for our items to be stored. And then for the second sketch, also tending to the fall theme, I created a spiderweb archive where each spider on the web would hold an item. Here, each spider is drawn on a magnetic box where the audience would aim a magnet at to open it up and find the items inside. And then of the 3 sketches I created, this turkey being the final one, a collaborative group discussion made us realize that the bobbing for apples sketch seems a lot more feasible to hold the items physically inside rather than the turkey or spider web. Because our team wanted to connect the prototype visually to our theme, we collaborated together in class period to put together a 4th sketch of which I would also draw. So our final sketch, here's our 4th and final sketch of the archive that we created. Rather than bobbing for apples, we shifted to a tree that would depict apple picking. The tree with the apples would the tree that the apples would hang on with the archive items within each apple is more symbolic of a melancholic theme. Because the apples will hang on a tree bare of leaves, that appears more like a winter tree. The tree also has the ability to separate the categories within the inventory by its branches, so this was a more attractive option to pursue.
To better categorize the form of our archive and to more efficiently organize the items on the tree branches, we recategorized our original 13 categories into 5 distinct categories using a form of the IDEO sticky note process as we had done before. We did settle on 5 categories that you can see here: Halloween, PC, weather, fall accessories, and edible items. So as you can see on this first branch, this is a demonstration of what it would look like. The items on the Halloween branch is the Halloween Town movie, a spiderweb decoration, and a pumpkin. On the branch for weather, you can see here is the fall foliage, LL Bean boots, fuzzy socks, and a raincoat. The Providence College branch shows a Providence College hat and LL Bean. And the edible items show jelly, apple cider, a Dunkin' Donuts cup, and corn. And then finally, the fall accessories branch is a football and a fall scented candle.
So this is Jason's slide, and Jason worked to provide context and make suggestions on the interactivity of our archive, presented an opportunity to share information with the audience about the archive through audio, which we noted as an advantage in the format of the archive presentation. Jason also provided a useful suggestion for viewers to leave something on a slip of paper to offer suggestion of an item that can be added to the archive. We will be adjusting this to incorporate some format of audience inclusion into our final prototype where items can be added based on audience suggestion. However, some of the drawbacks of Jason's findings are that he tailored most of the work to the spiderweb sketch, and we have since shifted the form of this archive. As a result of this, we collaborated through discussions over Zoom about how to make our new design more interactive, since we did not choose to use this spiderweb form. We concluded on a design where the audience can guess what is inside the archive based on clues within the user guide. Write their 15 guesses on one slip of paper and place their answer into an apple picking bag while also listing their contact information. Once a month, a winner is chosen from the apple picking bag. Whoever has correctly guessed the most number of items in the inventory These guests can be contacted by the phone number on their contact slip and can verbally put a suggestion to the designers for one additional item to be considered as an addition to the current archive.
As part of the ideation process, I brainstormed for the archive's user guide. As you can see here, I actually studied an actual user manual template to base the form of ours on. And together as a group, we discussed the strengths and weaknesses of this work. Some of the advantages that the group recognized within this work on the manual was the ability this format had to communicate background knowledge with the audience on the archive, with a place to define the mission or objective and categories and subcategories within. This user guide format was very clearly laid out and easy to follow with a table of contents and process steps. Some of the drawbacks to this user guide was that it was paper, so that after printing, it would be challenging to make any alterations to the guide if necessary. Furthermore, the template in the example isn't tailored specifically to our theme of Providence College, so we discussed that it may be more useful to include the COWA logo on our manual. Additionally, it was discussed that pictures of the inventory items should be included in the guide and not just serve as descriptions.
At the beginning of the presentation, we demonstrated live how to use this archive via the prototype that I created. So to close, Madison will provide a brief overview of the finished user manual.
Thanks, Kira. So thanks for listening to our presentation so far. I am just going to switch over here to the user manual. Okay. As soon as it pulls up, let me just drag this back to the beginning. As soon as this loads. Okay, so as you can see here, we did include the COWA logo, the name Follett Providence College, and this is by Group 3, Madison Palmer, Kira Westover, and Jason Collins. So as you can see on the first page, we did include a table of contents, which essentially includes an introduction, which has a note from the author, a statement about what the thesis is or what our archive is about, which is the experiences of Providence College students in this pandemic and how they're isolating, as well as you can see there goes into a scope and purpose, which is essentially the definition process, explaining the form and going into a little bit more detail on the theme. We do recommend that that participants do read this section before they go on to the process overview. And in this process overview, like we went over earlier, these are the steps of interacting with it. And then in the interactivity section are the clues that guide the participant to making their guesses. And then in the inventory section, which is the final section, you can briefly see an overview of the answer key before ultimately diving into 15 pages of the inventory sheets. Okay, so as you can see here, they're organized by the branches or the categories. So the first category was Halloween, with the first apple being the Halloween Town movie. So as you can see, we organized the group 3 display tactics and the initials of the person who did it, as well as the corresponding number, the date, and then there were some details about what the item was, what it looked like, and how it actually related to our theme that they can read more about, as well as the medium, the category it corresponded to, and the location of these images and their file location, which was within the Google Drive. So that is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening. I'm Madison Palmer.
I'm Kira Westover.
Thank you.